How did you, with this song, um, how did you get it? How did you get it to another level, lyric-wise? Do you have an example of a line or maybe words that you changed that it lifted towards more a universal meaning?
It's more just about a perspective change as far as thinking about disease, specifically in my case, to thinking about disease in a larger way, in a bigger way about how it affects other people, not specifically my experiences with it.
Um, well,
It's a subtle change, but I feel like the result is it winds up having a character that's quite a bit different than if I was just talking about specific events that I experienced.
yeah. Well, there's one song, you are called Noah,
Mm-hmm.
and there's one song, Mr. Noah.
Yeah,
So the obvious question is, of course, is this song about you?
it is. It's kind of a cartoony self-portrait of myself. I don't. Ultimately, I don't really speak about myself in very flattering terms, but
How come?
well, I suppose it's anybody's instinct to focus on the negative, isn't it? Especially when we're thinking about ourselves. But it's kind of in a lighthearted, sort of jokey way. It's nothing really super serious. I'm sort of talking about little annoying habits of mine, particularly annoying mental habits of mine.
Yeah, there's one line, don't want to get out of bed unless he feels like it's justified.
Yeah, I have a tendency towards laziness, so that's where that comes from. But I was speaking to this healer lady who I call her the witch, which sounds mean, but she's a fantastic lady in Portugal. And I was talking to her once, and she described my character as having 3 spirit animals. And the first was a wolf, the second was a bear, and the third was an eagle. And I thought that was a funny mixture, and didn't really see at first where I might be able to trace those lines in terms of how I thought about myself. And the song sort of became an exercise in trying to fit those animals to tendencies I felt like I had, elements of my personality.
And what did you think of her saying this? Is it something that you believe in, or is it?
I don't know. Yeah, that's still an open question for me. I mean, once I thought about it a fair amount, I could make sense of it. At first, I was kind of tossed it aside, but after I really thought about it, it made some sense to me.
The wolf, meaning you are.
That is more I thought of in the song. I talk about having a chip on the leg, or getting bit on the leg, in reference to me. I was a younger brother growing up. I have an older brother who was always good at everything, so I was always losing. And I think that just constant losing built up this strange sort of hyper-competitive streak in me. And in English, we talk about having a chip on our shoulder, sort of having this weight there that we're always struggling against. And I feel like I'll have that sort of internal battle often with myself, where I'm never feeling like anything's good enough and always wanting to push myself further. And that's how the wolf relates to the character in the song.
And that's the line. Don't want to get out of bed unless you feel justified.
Yeah.
And the bear?
The bear's the lazy one.
Of course. Yeah. And the eagle?
The eagle was more of a mental thing. Trying to think of the song. I can be a bit of a daydreamer, I think. So the eagle being in sort of the clouds and being sort of above everything is how I related the eagle. Part of it.
Well, you live in Portugal now, in Lisbon. What has this done to you, living over there?
I'm sure it's influenced the way I think about a whole lot of things. It's difficult to trace a lot of it specifically, but maybe something sort of obvious and on the surface is just seeing how a different culture, all the little ways that they do things differently from the area where I grew up, the language I grew up with the traditions, just opening up my eyes to the different approaches people can have to the same thing, and how perspectives can be completely different, but nobody's really right or wrong. It's just different ways of
Do you have an example
dealing
of?
with the same thing. Well, let's say a lunch break in a work day. What I was maybe used to in America was it's natural to take lunch, but you keep it as short as possible so you can get back to work, and that's fine. The Portuguese, I think, would find that a little bit barbaric, and the idea is that you slot a couple hours for lunch and make sure you have a good meal so that you have juice to work the rest of the day. I mean, they both want to work, but different ways of approaching the problem.
And how do you now approach the way of you making music? The
In
Portuguese.
terms of my work ethic,
Yeah.
I suppose I'm a little in between. After moving to Portugal, I sort of got into a different routine as far as if I didn't feel like I was doing something productive or valuable, maybe before I just would have stopped working completely. And now I'll just sort of shift my focus to something else, which I feel like still can be, I'm still productive, but I'm doing a different activity. So I might, if I'm trying to write a song or something like that, in the past, if it wasn't working, I would just go for a walk or something. Whereas now I'll maybe read a manual for a piece of equipment I have and try to learn a little bit more about how that thing works. Or I might search around on the internet for new music that's come out. You know, I feel like there's a lot of different activities I can be involved in that all hopefully lead towards making something successful.
What is successful for you?
What does that mean for me?
Yeah, is it sales-wise or something that you fulfilled by yourself or other people?
It's what does success in general mean for me?
You ended the sentence with hopefully making something that is successful.
Making something that's successful, I would define as it certainly has a feeling attached to it of having sort of a picture in mind at the beginning and somehow completing a circle and sort of reaching that place that you had envisioned. It doesn't necessarily mean that you make the exact thing that you thought you had kind of envisioned, but definitely a closing of the circle.
Do you always need to envision things, or?
I think I typically do. I do a lot of thinking about something beforehand, and then once the sort of actual work starts taking place, I try to take my mind out of the equation. But I definitely am prone to kind of blueprinting stuff, daydreaming a lot about things and types of equipment I want to use, the way I might use that equipment to write songs. ways of singing, ways of writing words. It's often sort of have just a big mixture of a plan that involves a lot of different elements. Not all of those elements eventually make their way through to the end, but I'll definitely come up with a game plan.